most popular builds involve Strength, Dex, or even Arcane, but what you just saw is the potential of a Faith build. It has some of the coolest and most powerful spells in the game, and a lot of different builds. But which one of them is actually the best? In this video, we're going to take the strongest, coolest, and most popular Faith builds. We'll test them at different stages of the game, on regular enemies, and on bosses. After that, we'll put everything into a table so we can finally decide objectively which of these builds is the best in the entire game. And it's going to be super cool. So grab a snack, get comfy, and let's dive in. So why do Faith builds actually look this insanely cool, like we just cut a seam straight out of a cinematic? There are a few reasons for that. First of all, Faith builds use incantations. These are basically spells, but for people who believe. If you don't believe, you can't use them. They are strong. Second, there are Ashes of War on weapons. Many Faith-based weapons have really strong Ashes of War. They deal a lot of damage, hit in an area, make it easy to clear dungeons, and can even heal you through lifesteal effects. And of course, there are buffs. To use most buffs in the game, you need Faith. And the more Faith you have, the stronger the buffs you can use. Basically, Faith builds are like playing a paladin in Warcraft, but with spells that have much better visuals. Now that you understand what Faith builds give you, the only thing left is to figure out which one of them is the strongest. To do that, I went through Google, Reddit, and YouTube to see which Faith builds are the most popular and the strongest right now. Then I went into the game, tested them on different bosses, mobs, and get the results. We'll face a total of 3 bosses: an early game boss, a mid-game boss, and an end-game boss. We'll face the same bosses across all 4 builds. I also made sure that the bosses we'll go up against are either neutral against our damage type. This is so we can judge all 4 builds properly and fairly. We'll also have these builds run through the different sections of the game normally to see just how well it does outside of boss encounters. What use are the boss fights if you can't get there, right? All of them were played at level 150, with the Faith stat locked at 60. Now, let's start with the very first build, the Blasphemous Blade build. The Blasphemous Blade has been one of the most reliable Faith weapons since Elden Ring came out, and it's only gotten better since. On top of being an absolute drip, this weapon slaps for one reason. It's Ash of War, Taker's Flame. When performed, it deals substantial fire damage to enemies, and it heals you by 10% of your max health plus 40. That's not bad, isn't it? That said, its standard attacks aren't too shabby as well. The weapon is a greatsword, which means it's not too slow while still being hard-hitting enough to stunlock smaller enemies. But the Ash of War will be our primary damage dealer. The build will be centered around you spamming this skill to oblivion until your enemies give up on life. You can use any armor set for this build, but for the sake of aesthetics, I recommend using the Rakshasa set to give you that crazy damage. Plus, it also boasts an impressive defense and poise rating, which means you won't stagger as easily. If you don't have the DLC, you can use the Veteran set instead. It works really well too. Let's move to the stats. We need 50 Vigor for that perfect endgame Vigor rating, Mind at 32, which should be enough for our skill spam, Endurance at 25, enough for the gear we carry, and the rest goes into Faith, because that's what our damage scales with. This is what your stats should look like. For your spells, we'll stick with the Flames Grant Me Strength for a 20% damage boost. You can use other fire-based spells, but we're holding off on that because this build is centered around our main weapon. Besides, we have a fire-based build to showcase later on. That's something to look forward to. For your talismans, we'll go with the Talisman of the Dread for 15% added magma attack damage, which is what the Taker's Flame deals, the Fire Scorpion Charm for 12% more fire damage, also to make your Ash of War more powerful, the Shard of Alexander, which boosts the power of skills by 15%, and for defense, we'll go for the Dragon Crest Great Shield. You can swap that last talisman around depending on the damage type the boss you're fighting does, but for now, we're going with this one. For your physic, use the Flame Shrouding Cracked tier for 20% more fire damage and the Blood Sucking Cracked tier. This tier increases your offensive powers by 20% more in exchange for a few ticks of HP every second. This downside isn't a big deal for us because remember, the Taker's Flame heals you every time you attack with it. This means we get the benefit of the tier without its drawback. With that, here's where you can acquire everything. You can get the Blasphemous Blade by trading Rykard's Remembrance with Enya at the Round Table Hold. The Rakshasa set is dropped by the boss it's named after, found at the Eastern Nameless Mausoleum in the DLC. You can get here by starting at the Shadowkeep and following this path. For the Flame Grant Me Strength, head to Fort Gale in Caelid. You'll find on the outer wall, guarded by 2 flame chariots. Now the talismans. For the Talisman of the Dread, you can find it on the Elder's Hovel Shack, found behind the Fort of Reprimand. The Fire Scorpion Charm is at Fort Laed on Mount Gelmir. It's on this rampart here. Easy pickings. As for the Shard of Alexander, you get this talisman by completing Alexander's questline and defeating him at Crumbling Farum Azula. We love this guy, but he had a 0 chance here. Sorry bro, your shards are mine now. Finally, the Dragon Crest Great Shield. This is found on Elphael, Brace of the Halig Tree. From the drainage channel side of Grace, continue forward and follow this path until you reach the chest. All that's left now are the crystal tiers. Let's start with the flame shrouding tier. This is dropped by the Erd Tree avatar at this minor Erd Tree north of the Smoldering Church in Caelid. Just defeat the boss and the item is yours. Then, head to the DLC and make your way to the ruins of Unta. There's a furnace golem here you can wake up by throwing a hefty fire pot on its head. Defeat this humongous walking splinter to get the blood-sucking cracked tier. If you don't have access to the DLC, you can swap some of these for items you'll find in the base game instead. For the armor, you can instead choose the Crucible set. Axe or tree is fine either way, for similar defense ratings and aesthetics. You get the axe set by defeating this guy at the end of the Oriza hero's grave, and you can get the tree set by opening this chest here. You can swap out the Talisman of the Dread with the Ritual Sword Talisman, which increases your attacks by 10% when you're at full HP. You can pick it up after defeating this boss at Lux Ruins. As for the blood-sucking cracked tier, you can swap it to the Faith Knot Crystal tier, which increases your faith stat by 10 points for 3 minutes. You can find this crystal tier here. Alright, that's that. Now, let's test the build against bosses. First up, Margit. Now remember, our first test is against an early game boss, just to show you how ridiculous these builds can be. Well, this is how. Emotional damage! A measly 20 seconds for the full boss fight to be over. He didn't even get the chance to make an inappropriate comment about the blood in my veins. That result, while incredible, was honestly expected. So now, let's try to test it against a stronger boss. The representative of the mid-game bosses will be Commander Nile. The fight against Nile took a bit longer. He's a tough boss and can hit extremely hard. Thankfully, our Ash of War does too. After easily getting rid of the summons, 5 attacks of our skill were enough to bring the boss down. This notoriously difficult fight was done in under a minute. Now, let's test it against an endgame boss. We'll use Placidusax as our guinea dragon? Placidusax is arguably one of the toughest bosses in the game, and we're choosing him for our sample because he is neither weak nor resistant to our damage types, making this matchup fair to judge. Placidusax's HP and high defense are certainly nothing to scoff at. That said, with all buffs active, each strike from the Taker's Flame takes about 2,500 of his HP. The boss fight was just all about finding the right openings, proper positioning, and hitting him with the Ash of War. I was able to defeat this giant, magnificent dragon in about 4 minutes and 30 seconds using this build. That's a long time, but Placidusax is also one of the most durable bosses in Elden Ring. Plus, there are many moments in the fight that require us to wait for his attacks or run around, extending the duration further. Mobs don't stand a chance either. The Taker's Flame is way too OP for regular enemies, and the fact that there are more of them to hit just means more healing for you. Even the regular melee attacks are enough to bring enemies down. Whether you're passing through a cave, a tunnel, or a legacy dungeon, this weapon allows you to breeze through everything. Considering the Taker's Flame deal pure fire damage, there are several enemies in the game who are resistant to our attacks, and a few who are outright immune to it. Here's a full list of enemies who are resistant to fire damage, which include dragons, crucible knights, and the fire giant, and here are the ones who are completely immune to it, which means any hit you land doesn't hurt them at all. This list includes the final form of Iron Fist Alexander and the Magma Worm at the Seathwater Terminus. That said, normal melee attacks with the Blasphemous Blade still hurt them considering our standard attacks deal physical damage. On the other hand, there are also a wide range of enemies who are weak against fire damage, meaning these guys will fall faster from our attacks. Here's a full list, but a few notable ones include Finger Creepers, Erd Tree Avatars, which also happens to include the Putrid variation, Ulcerated Tree Spirit, and even the Scadu Tree Avatar. Once you get used to the skill's wind-up duration and really nail its timing, this build is a true powerhouse. Your skill hits like a bullet train on fire, and you never have to worry about healing. Your skill tops up your HP the more aggressive you are. It's very rewarding, and most importantly, it's incredibly powerful. Moving on to our next build, which I like to call the Death Knight Dragon Cult build. The highlights for this one are the Dragon Cult incantations, but we're also going to be using a melee weapon to diversify our offensive options and to make our build more efficient. Speaking of which, our main weapon will be the Death Knight's twin axes. This is a really powerful and flashy lightning weapon that was introduced in the DLC. It becomes a paired weapon when you two-hand it, which means you get the speed and aggression of power stancing in just one weapon. Plus, it has an awesome Ash of War. Just look at this. But what is even more awesome is the Dragon Cult incantations. First, we've got the Dragon Bolt of Florisax, which boosts damage negation by 10% while covering us with red lightning aura. Then, we'll pair this with Electrocharge, another incantation that surrounds us with yellow lightning, while also dealing lightning damage all around us. Really, we're taking advantage of these for the visuals. No shame there. Then, we have the Knight's Lightning Spear, the Honed Bolt, Fortisax's Lightning Spear, and the Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike. All of these combined, and you should have enough spells in your arsenal to deal with enemies and bosses of all sizes and movement speed. We can't cast our spells without a Sacred Seal, and for this build, we're going with the Graven Stone Seal. Why this one exactly? Because it boosts the attack power for Dragon Cult incantations specifically. We're making ourselves even more powerful here. Now, let's talk about our armor set. For this build, we'll be wearing the Death Knight's full set. We're choosing this not only because of how it looks, but also because it raises the damage of our Dragon Cult spells by 8%. As for your stats, it's pretty much the same as the previous build, adjusted only to account for our main weapon. For our talismans, we're running with the Radagon icon to shorten the casting time of our spells, the Light Knight Scorpion Charm to increase lightning damage by 12%, Godfrey icon to enhance charge spells and skills by 15%, and the Dragon Crest Great Shield for defense. To round it all up, we have our Crystal Tiers. We're mixing the Lightning Shrouding Cracked tier and the Holy Shrouding Cracked tier for a 20% boost in both lightning and holy damage. Alright, cool? Let's talk about where to get these things. The Death Knight's twin axes are dropped by the Death Knight boss at the Fog Rift Catacombs in the DLC. The Death Knight set, on the other hand, is found in the Darklight Catacombs in Scadu Altus. It's on this sleeping dude in this hidden area here. As for the Dragon Cult incantations, you can get the Lightning Spear and the Honed Bolt by purchasing them from Muriel or Korin after you give them the Dragon Cult Prayer Book, which you get from this knight. You can get the Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike by getting this prayer book in the Crumbling Farum Azula. Now for Fortisax's Lightning Spear. You can get this by trading Lich Dragon Fortisax's Remembrance with Enya at the Round Table Hold. The Knight's Lightning Spear is found in the Scorpion River Catacombs in this hall the second time you encounter this weird eyes thing behind this pillar. To get the Dragon Bolt of Florisax, follow Tiolier's questline until he gives you his concoction. Then, talk to this woman here and give her Tiolier's questionable juice. Now, all you'll have to do is beat Bale. Yeah, no easy feat. And once the dragon is defeated, head back to the priestess to see her sleeping, and pick up the spell from her, along with an awesome Spirit Ash. For the Electro Charge, enter the Fog Rift Catacombs. You'll find it on a corpse in this room. Alright, let's fast track through the talismans and the crystal tiers. The Radagon's icon is found in Rea Lucaria on the second floor of the debate parlor. For the Lightning Scorpion Charm, enter the Wyndham Catacombs. Enter this room that's sealed by an imp statue and pick the talisman up. To get the Godfrey icon, enter the Golden Lineage Everjail and defeat Godric's discarded cousin. Then, just get the Dragon Crest Great Shield from the usual spot, and that completes the set. For the crystal tiers, both are fortunately dropped by the same Erdtree avatar, which you'll find guarding this minor Erdtree. If you don't have access to the DLC, you can skip the Death Knight set and just equip the Haligtree Night Helm, which are dropped by these guys, to increase your faith by 2 points. Pair it with the Malformed Knight set, and you should have a thematically suitable build. As for the Dragon Bolt of Florisax, you can just forego this and stick with the Electrocharge spell. And that's that. Now to test the build. First off, let's see how it does against Margit. As expected, the build is very OP against an early game boss. The lightning spears deal over 1000 damage, one strike from the axe deals over 800 damage, and the other spells are way too powerful for him at this point. Poor Margit never stood a chance. He falls in just 50 seconds. Commander Nile is a bit more resilient. Although his summons immediately falls after one hit of the Knight's Lightning Spear, Nile himself takes over 1600 damage per hit, which is only a fraction compared to his massive health. That said, after a string of lightning spells and axes to the face, he too falls easily in just 1 minute and 30 seconds. Alright, now it's time to face Placidusax. My main tool against this boss is the Knight's Lightning Spear. It is our most effective spell. With all buffs active, each strike from this spell, as long as all lightning spears hit, takes away over 1600 of his HP. Our melee attacks aren't too impressive for this fight. One combo only deals over 1300 damage, and a whole string can take up about 4 seconds. That leaves us too open for a counterattack. I was able to capitalize on Placidusax's slow wind-up times during a few instances by using Fortisax's Lightning Spear, which removes over 2300 of his HP all in all. So with the Knight's Lightning Spear and Fortisax's Lightning Spear, I was able to defeat this ancient Dragon Lord in 5 minutes. Against mobs, our other spells like the Honed Bolt and the Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike prove their usefulness. The Ash of War lets us close gaps fast, so we have the option to approach enemies right away if we don't feel like hurling a lightning bolt at their faces. The enemies and bosses that are resistant to lightning attacks, which is our main damage type, include Astil, Malekith, and Baal. Here's a full list if you want to take a look. Thankfully, there are no enemies in Elden Ring who are fully resistant to our damage type. On the other hand, a wide range of enemies are weak against lightning. Here's a full list, but a few notable ones are Renala, Morgott, and the Putrescent Knight. All in all, this build rewards timing and familiarity with the build. Juggling between your melee option and incantations can be overwhelming at first, but knowing when to use both will make you unstoppable. The Euphoria build. The Euphoria is one of the most hidden weapons in the whole game, and for good reason, because it also happens to be one of the best weapons you can wield. It's a twin blade, which means it's fast, and it has a feature that encourages you to be as aggressive as possible. Euphoria has a charge-up mechanic where it starts to glow gold after a few hits, and this isn't just a cosmetic glow-up either. When this happens, your weapon gains a boost of 5% holy damage for about 15 seconds. Not only that, but your weapon skill, Euphoria Vortex, gets supercharged too. Now, for the rest of the build, starting with your armor, you can pretty much wear whatever you want with this one. I'm only donning the Elden Lord armor here for aesthetic purposes. Style points never hurt, am I right? As for your stats, just follow the numbers you see on screen here, and you'll be good to go. For talismans, we're running the Shard of Alexander and Rotten Winged Insignia, which boosts our damage by a maximum of 13% with successive attacks. The Two-Handed Sword Talisman, which increases our power by 15% when we two-hand our weapon, which is what we'll be mainly doing throughout the run, and the Dragon Crest Great Shield for defense once again. For your spell, we'll only need the Golden Vow to buff your attack by 15% and defense by 10%. For your physic, use the Holy Shrouding Cracked Tier and the Thorny Cracked Tier, which increase your attack power by a maximum of 20% with consecutive attacks. This tier stacks with your talisman for even higher boosts whenever you keep landing hits. Okay, now let's talk about obtaining the items you'll need for this build, starting with the main weapon. I wasn't kidding when I said this is one of the most hidden weapons in the game, and you're about to see why. The Euphoria is at the Bellarat Tower settlement, but you'll need to start from Anir Elim to get there. You'll start from the Spiral Rise Site of Grace, and just follow my path here to eventually get to the room where the weapon is. The path is kind of long, and you have to be careful not to fall here, but as long as you know where to go, you should be able to get here without any problems. What a journey that was, but we're not done yet. If you want to wear the Elden Lord set like I'm doing now, just beat Godfrey, and you can purchase his drip from Ania. She's a reseller for all the hottest merch in the lands between. Now, for the Golden Vow. You'll find this at the Corpse Stench Shack at Mount Gelmir. As for the talismans, you already know where to find the Shard of Alexander and the Dragon Crest, so we'll head straight for the Rotten Winged Sword. To get this, just get to the end of Millicent's questline, offer to help her, and you'll receive this as a reward at her end. For the Two-Handed Sword Talisman, you'll have to head to the Templetown Ruins in the DLC. Get to the highest tower at the top of the ruins, and you'll find it in a chest. Alright, lastly we have the Crystal Tiers. You already know which enemy to defeat for the Holy Cracked Tier, now we just have to get the other one. Head to this minor Erd tree at the Consecrated Snowfield and defeat the Putrid Avatar here to complete the build. Now, this build doesn't work without Euphoria, since obviously it's the star of the show, but if the DLC is still out of reach for you, you can settle for the Gargoyle's Black Blades for now for a twin blade that scales with Faith. You'll have to rely on its melee attacks, but it's still powerful in the right hands. This weapon is dropped by this boss in the Forbidden Lands. As for the Two-Handed Talisman, you can swap it for the Two Fingers Heirloom found in the Purified Ruins to raise your faith by 5. Everything's gathered. Now it's time to see just how good this build is. First, against Margit. Just one combo was enough to get his HP down to just around 20%. And of course, it was also enough to charge up our skill, which wiped him out immediately. 30 seconds and he's gone. The weapon was super effective against Niall too. His summons stood no chance either. Both fell in just 3 hits, after which the twin blade already glowed. The Ash of War allowed us to remove over 2,000 of his HP in just a second. Repeat the process 2 more times and the fight is over. It only took over a minute to bring him down. But how does it hold up against an endgame boss? Against Placidusax, the goal remained the same. Hit him during his openings and wait for our twin blade to fully charge up. Once it glows bright gold, with all buffs active, the full length of the Euphoria Vortex took about 5,500 of his HP. It's the most impressive attack against him thus far. I just repeated this same process throughout the fight. Hit him here and there, and once the Vortex is fully charged, I empty it all on Placidusax. With this build, it only took me 3 minutes to defeat this massive boss. That's short work considering who we're up against.
Mobs didn't stand a chance either. Seeing as Twin Blades and Elden Ring hit really fast, our attacks are fast enough to deal with any enemy. Just a few hits, and Euphoria Vortex comes online. The weapon allows you to breeze through any section of the game with ease. As for enemies who are resistant to Holy, here's a full list, where you'll find enemies such as Godfrey, Radagon, and the Elden Beast. There are no enemies that are immune to our damage type, thankfully. As for enemies who are weak to holy damage, here's a list for you to take a look at if you want. In summary, this build is an absolute powerhouse. It's fast, aggressive, powerful, and stylish. Everything a Faith build should be. It's right up there as one of the best builds in the game, period, for as long as you're able to take advantage of the powerful Ash of War effectively. This next build will turn your enemies into Ed Sheeran because they will all see fire. Our main weapon here is the Fire Knight's Greatsword, an absolutely powerful fire-based weapon, and we'll pair it with a string of the game's most awesome fire incantations. Our main weapon is a colossal weapon, but it has a unique offensive moveset that makes it faster than its counterparts, all while having the power and weight of its weapon class. It naturally deals fire damage, but you can infuse it with an Ash of War. For this build, we'll infuse it with the Flame Spear Ash of War to make it lean even more towards Faith. On the other hand, we also have powerful incantations courtesy of the Giant's Flame and Mesmer's Flame types. We have the Flame, Grant Me Strength for the power boost, Catch Flame, Giant's Flame, Take Thee, Flame of the Fell God, the Fire Serpent for Quick, and Mesmer's Orb. Not only will you be versatile enough, you'll look absolutely cool defeating your foes. To cast these spells, we'll use the Giant Seal to boost our Giant's Flame incantations, and the Fire Knight Seal to boost the Mesmer's Flame incantations. For your armor, you'll be wearing Mesmer's Helm along with the Fire Knight armor, Fire Knight Gauntlets, and Fire Knight Greaves. This combination not only looks absolutely cool, but it also boosts the power of your spells. Finally, the stats. Once again, meeting the weapon requirements while maximizing Faith. Alright, let's talk about the talismans. You should be familiar with these by now. Fire Scorpion Charm, Godfrey Icon, Shard of Alexander, and of course, our trusty Death Talisman, the Dragon Crest Great Shield. Our physic is a mix of the Flame Shrouding Cracked tier and the Holy Shrouding Cracked tier. Alright, that rounds up the build, now let's talk about where to get each one of these. The Fire Knight's Greatsword is a random drop from Fire Knights who wield it in Shadowkeep. Incidentally, these guys also drop the armor pieces you'll need, so watch out for the armor piece, the gauntlets, and the greaves too. Mesmer's Helm is purchased from Finger Reader Enya at the Round Table Hold after you defeat Mesmer the Impaler. For the spells, let's start with the Giant's Flame incantations. Pick up the Flame, Grant Me Strength from Fort Gale. Since you started out as a Prophet class, you should already have the Catch Flame spell by now. If you chose another class, you can purchase this from Brother Korin instead. To get the Giant's Flame Take Thee spell, you'll need to get the Giant's Prayer Book at the top of the Guardian's Garrison in the mountaintops of the Giants. As for the Flame of the Fell God, you win this after defeating Adon, Thief of Fire, the enemy who's trapped in the Malefactor's Everjail in Liurnia. Now, for the Mesmer's Flame incantations. The Fire Serpent is found in Shadowkeep. Start from the Storehouse, back section Site of Grace, and follow my route here to get to the incantation. The Mesmer's Orb is obtained by trading the Remembrance of the Impaler with Enya at the Round Table Hold. For your Sacred Seals, you get the Giant Seal inside the Giant Conquering Hero's grave. For the other seal, you'll find this at the Church District section of the Shadowkeep, in the room with the Giant Marika statue. You can only access this room after clearing the Flood. You already know where to pick up all the talismans and the crystal tears, but just in case you forgot, here's where they are on the map. As for alternatives, if you don't have access to the DLC, you can use the Zweihander instead of the Fire Knight's Greatsword, since the two have a similar moveset. You can purchase this from the merchant in the Weeping Peninsula. Be sure to infuse it with any fire-based Ash of War. As for your armor, you can also choose the Crucible set. It won't come with bonuses, but it's reliable enough. You can also forego the Mesmer's Flame incantations completely and just stick to the Giant's Flame incantations. And that's done! Let's put the build to the test. Against Margit, all I had to do was hit him with one Flame of the Fell God and one heavy attack from my melee weapon, and he's done. 20 seconds. That's all it took to bring this boss down. The Commander Nile fight was admittedly a bit trickier. 2 Giant's Flame fireballs each for the 2 summons, and I got to solo Nile. The Flame of the Fell God wasn't as effective against him, so I resorted to using the Giant's Flame spell and my melee attacks. All in all, it took me 1 minute and 50 seconds to bring him down, my longest run thus far. With that done, let's head to the endgame boss. As expected, our attacks aren't as impressive compared to the earlier fights. Even with all buffs active, the Giant's Flame Take Thee only deals over 900 damage, and Mesmer's Orb only deals around 700. That said, our melee weapon takes the spotlight here. With the Ash of War active, one combo removes over 2,000 of his HP. And since we do significant stance damage, I was even able to break his posture, allowing me to perform a riposte. This fight still took 5 minutes, which isn't a letdown number against this boss. Our slower winding spells are given the time to shine against normal mobs. Mesmer's Orb is by far our best arsenal against large crowds. Our other spells are also quite effective against smaller enemies. You should have no trouble exploring the game as a Fire Knight Pyromancer. Like the Blasphemous Blade, this build primarily uses fire damage, so if you want a refresher on enemies who are resistant, immune, and weak against fire, here's the list for you. This build is all about power and style. Not only do you hit hard, you look cool wiping out your enemies as well. It's Elden Drip at its finest. On top of that, using a full-on Pyromancer in a Souls game is tradition. We're honoring the previous games here, and if that's not added points, then what is? Alright, enough yapping. Let's finally get to judging these builds. As I mentioned at the start of the video, we're judging all 4 builds with the following criteria: power, accessibility, flexibility, ease of play, and style. Here's how the point system works. If a build takes the top spot, it earns 4 points. If it's on second place, it earns 3 points, etc. By the end, we'll add up the points each build has accumulated to finally assess which of these is the best faith build in Elden Ring. Let's start with power first. When it comes to raw damage output and killing potential, we need to look at how effectively each build can eliminate enemies and bosses. In 4th place with 1 point is the Fire Knight Pyromancer build. Across all 3 tests, it took us over 7 minutes and 20 seconds. This build's fire damage is consistently devastating, and having both a powerful melee weapon and multiple hard-hitting incantations means your damage output is reliable. It's powerful, just not as powerful as the rest. 3rd place with 2 points goes to the Death Knight Dragon Cult build. It took us 7 minutes and 10 seconds across all 3 boss fights, but the build in itself was still fairly impressive. We have diverse options for dealing damage, our incantations are super powerful, and of course, that Ash of War isn't only effective, but also really satisfying to use. In 2nd place, earning 3 points, is the Blasphemous Blade. The Taker's Flame packs too hard a punch against the enemies we faced. Only 5 minutes and 20 seconds across 3 boss fights. It's OP enough, and our tests certainly proved it. And finally, taking the top spot in power is the Euphoria build with 4 points. This thing is an absolute monster. The charge-up mechanic combined with the supercharged vortex skill creates damage spikes that are genuinely insane. A total of just 4 minutes and 30 seconds across 3 boss fights. It's undoubtedly the hardest hitting build we tested. Next up, we have accessibility. When it comes to how easy it is to complete each build, we're looking at the time investment, difficulty of obtaining key items, and how much of the game you need to clear to get everything together. In 4th place with 1 point is the Fire Knight Pyromancer build. The Fire Knight's greatsword has only a 4% drop rate from Fire Knights in Shadowkeep. Some unlucky players even end up farming for 30 minutes or more, just hoping for a drop. Add the Fire Knight armor pieces as additional random drops, and you've got the least accessible build of the 4.
3rd place with 2 points goes to the Euphoria build. The weapon requires progressing almost to the end of the DLC, defeating Mesmer and Romina first, then navigating a complex series of jumps in Enyer Elim to Bellarat Tower Settlement. It's one of the most hidden weapons in the game, which is why it sits at 3rd. In 2nd place with 3 points is the Death Knight Dragon Cult build. The Death Knight's twin axes are a guaranteed boss drop from Fog Rift Catacombs, accessible right at the start of the DLC. The armor requires platforming, but is also a guaranteed pickup. Some incantations need prayer books and Bale's Defeat, who is arguably an endgame DLC boss. Taking the top spot with 4 points is the Blasphemous Blade build. The main weapon only requires defeating Rykard in Volcano Manor, a mid-game boss accessible relatively early. Most talismans are in the base game at accessible locations, and the Rakshasa set is straightforward to obtain in the DLC. No absolute endgame items here. Then we have flexibility, or how well it can work throughout the entire game against mobs and other bosses. In last place, we have the Blasphemous Blade. This weapon is powerful, don't get me wrong, but it's solely reliant on one strategy, its Ash of War. It works in a lot of situations, but it's not as diverse as the other builds. For that reason alone, it sits in last place. In 3rd place, we have the Death Knight Dragon Cult build. It balances melee and casting well, providing fast, close-range options and powerful ranged lightning spells. You can even go pure melee or pure casting with this build, depending on your mood for that particular time, or the enemy you're going up against. It's powerful and versatile, but not quite as powerful as the top 2. In 2nd place, we have the Fire Knight Pyromancer. This build gives you multiple incantations for various enemy types.
You can deal with faster enemies with Catch Flame and Fire Serpent, and bigger enemies have no choice but to absorb your more powerful incantations. Given that your main weapon is a colossal sword, it also obliterates any enemy standing in your way. Even those that are resistant to fire aren't resistant to long swords to the face. Taking the top spot is the Euphoria build. The Twin Blade's fast attacks and versatile moveset work against enemies of all types and sizes. Almost every single enemy in the game is weak against Holy, and even those that are not are still at the mercy of the fast attacks of your main weapon. It's arguably one of the best weapons in Elden Ring, and it's perfect for any situation. Now, let's talk about ease of play. This refers to how simple and forgiving the build is to use effectively, and how survivable it is, especially for players who aren't experts at the game. In last place, we have the Fire Knight Pyromancer build, for the same reasons as the previous one, but with one more point: 2 Sacred Seals. It's effective using both to match the incantation you're using, and once you get used to it, it becomes an absolute powerhouse. But that's just the thing. You still need time to get more used to it. In third place, we have the Death Knight Dragon Cult build. This one requires juggling between melee attacks and multiple incantations, which can be overwhelming for newer players. You need to know exactly which spell to use in a situation, all while managing your FP efficiently. It's powerful, but it demands a bit of familiarity. In second place, the Euphoria build. All you'll have to do to make this build as efficient as it can be is to just keep hitting enemies. Once your weapon glows, fire up the Ash of War and repeat. That's it. That's all it takes to absolutely break enemies, and it's way more than enough. At number 1, we have the Blasphemous Blade build. The strategy for this one is also very simple. Spam the Ash of War and profit. The skill deals massive damage, it heals you, and it has decent range. You're more than likely to get out of most encounters without even chugging your flask. It's that easy to use. Finally, we have the final criteria, which is just as important as the previous ones. I'm not budging on this. Style. Not only should we be powerful, we should also feel like it. In fourth place, the Blasphemous Blade. While everything from the weapon and the Rakshasa set provides a solid Fire Monk aesthetic, the visual and cool factor is the most limited out of the 4 builds. You're mostly watching the same slam animation from the Taker's Flame repeatedly. It looks good, but it doesn't have the visual diversity and wow factor of the other builds.
Third place goes to the Euphoria build. The Twin Blade itself is elegant and the golden glow is visually striking. Pair it with the Elden Lord armor and you're looking regal and powerful as an Elden Lord should be. In second place, we have the Fire Knight Pyromancer. Mesmer's helm, combined with the Fire Knight set, is pure style. It creates this intimidating fire-themed warrior aesthetic that perfectly matches our attack moveset. The incantations are amazing, from the massive Gienst Flame and Flame of the Fell God to the anime-esque Mesmer's Orb. Every spell looks like it belongs in a high-budget animation sequence. It's peak visual fantasy. When it comes to style, nothing tops the Death Knight Dragon Cult. The armor set gives you that dark, ominous look, and the lightning effects are just chef's kiss. The Blink Bolt skill literally turns you into a lightning bolt, and the skills all look phenomenal. You're an edgy Greek god, which is undeniably cool. And that's that. All 4 builds ranked, now it's time to name our winner. In fourth place, we have the Fire Knight Pyromancer with 10 points. In third place, with 12 points, we have the Death Knight Dragon Cult. In second place, with 13 points, we have the Blasphemous Blade. Finally, the build we'll dub as the most powerful faith build, Euphoria. With 15 points, this stands as the best faith build you can use in Elden Ring right now. It's powerful, easy to use, and no enemy in the game will stand a chance against you, whether they be a normal mob or a gigantic boss. It's pure power, and it's so incredibly fun to use as well. And there you have it, the best faith build in Elden Ring. Do you agree? Or are there any faith builds I missed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or you can hop in on our Discord server as well. Let's have a chat. That's it for today's video. If you liked this one, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more Elden Ring guides. If you're looking for more Hawk Live content, click on one of the 2 videos that are currently on the screen. Until next time, this is Hawk Live signing off.